Welcome back to SleeplessRonin Plays, and today we're going to be looking at the 18 Clan Mechs from Technical Readout 3058. And once again, we're going to be doing a tier ranking list with them. We've got my 5 tiers, my typical pretty much the 5 tiers. This time I've gotten rid of the Does Not Belong tier, and I've just re-included the Dreadful tier. Although, because these are Clan Mechs, I'm not expecting anything to fall into that tier. But I just keep 5 tiers up here because that's kind of the generic, typical way tier list makers are done. So the 5 tiers are Superior, Awesome, Basic, Crap, and Dreadful. We'll see if anything falls in the lower 2 tiers. I mean, again, these are Clan Mechs. Some of them are Omnis and some of them are second liners, so we'll see. I'm not really expecting a lot to fall into there. The funny thing is, of these mechs, I do believe like 16 of these 18 mechs have already been resculpted and redesigned by the Catalyst Game Labs in the recent Kickstarter. So most of these mechs from 3058 are already with brand new models, which is pretty cool. So during the course of this, you'll see both the art of the old book and the new art from the clan recognition guides and other sources that the new art's been involved in. So first up, we got our little 20-ton clan second line mech, the Piranha. This thing is a truly insane mech because it mounts 12 machine guns. Yeah, I mean, remember, clan machine guns weigh 1/4 of a ton, so like you can stick like 12 of them on for 3 tons, and then it only mounts 1 full ton of ammo. It actually mounts 2 half-ton bins, but still, you know, that's still a lot of ammo for these 12 machine guns. But it'll actually go through the ammo, unlike other mechs with machine guns. It will actually tend to eat through the ammo. It also has 2 ER mediums and an ER small laser. The thing I'm looking at right here, though, that's kind of throwing me is, I think this thing might have single heat sinks. I need to go dig that up in the record sheets, but I think it might have single heat sinks, which if it does, drives me nuts. Yes, it has single heat sinks. I mean, if it had doubles, it would be heat efficient. Really heat efficient. As it is, you can overheat with this mech, because if you fire both the ER mediums and run, you generate 2 points of heat. I mean, that's just... Why? Why on a clan mech would you not have double heat sinks? That makes me want to knock it down a little bit. I was going to put it in the superior category because it's kind of bonkers. But... single heat sinks on a clan mech hurts me. I'm going to have to... man. First decision. It's a real toughie. Awesome or basic? I mean... That's a really good crit seeker, so I'm going to stick it in the awesome category still. But the single heat sinks hurt. It's not even badly armored either for 20 tons. It's just the single heat sinks mean that it's not able to literally output all of its damage all the time, and that just drops it down a little bit. I mean, come on. All right, let's move on past that. Next up is the Fire Falcon. This is an Omni mech. Created for Jade Falcon. Other people probably use it too, but Jade Falcon. And it's a little 25-tonner. It's got good speed. It's got the speed of a Locust. Okay armor. I mean, it's only a little bit better armor than the Piranha. It's not quite max on the armor. Maybe I can just glance down and tell you that the arms and the legs are both lacking in the armor category. They could be more heavily armored than they are. But let's take a look at the weaponry loadout. The primary configuration mounts 2 ER mediums, 2 ER smalls, a medium pulse, and 2 streak 4s. That's a lot of guns for a little 25-tonner. But it mounts 10 tons of pod space, so 40% of this mech is dedicated to offensive output. It's a pretty good set of weapons too. I mean, it's going to be a little bit warm running if both the streaks lock in, but that's not bad. And other variants get even weirder. I mean, there's a long-range one that's got AC2 Ultras and LRMs. There's a sniper one, which you got 2 ER larges and targeting computer. Now that one's going to overheat because it only has 10 double heat sinks. So that could be an issue. I mean, not a huge one. You can go fire, cool 1, and fire 1, fire 2. But that target computer means it's going to be very accurate at distance. Then we got the a lot of machine guns, medium pulses, small pulses, double SRM6s, and active probe. Kind of like the scout version that's good at killing infantry and stuff like that. So not terrible. There's the support one that's got Narc and Tag. That just seems weird for a clan mech to me. I mean, that's a little bit too supporty. Not really so much the I fight for myself. But, whatever. There's a very strange one that just mounts an ATM-12 with 3 tons of ammo. So you can run HE, basic, and extended range. Then we got the one that's got the heavy medium lasers and medium pulses and extra heat sinks. And that one's pretty good. It's got heavy smalls and heavy mediums. So that one's not bad at all. I mean, in general, all the variants of this mech are pretty solid for good speed. A little bit light on the armor. I'm going to stick this mech in the awesome category also. I relatively like it as a light. And the new sculpt looks pretty good. So we got that going for it too. The original artwork, I mean, the missile ports for the Streak SRM-4s, which is represented by 5 tubes. What? Yeah. The SRM-4 Streaks, 2 of them represented by 5 missile tubes on the back of this thing. Because the arms both have the 2 lasers, which, by the way, again, have the same aperture width as a missile launcher. Why? But the new artwork, yeah. Alright, next up is the Hanq, aka the Arctic Cheetah in clan terms. You know, clans call it the Arctic Cheetah. The Inner Sphere Freebirths call it the Hanq. This is a 30-ton light Omni mech. Again, moving the same speed as a Locust, but adding 6 points of jump speed, which is pretty good. Sadly, this thing is even less armored. Well, actually, it's equally armored to the Fire Falcon, which means percentage-wise, it has lower armor. So, yeah, I mean, it's very under-armored for its weight. So this thing has got a weakness right there. That might be knocking it down a little bit. It's a little bit weak. Thankfully, it does have 10 double heat sinks. And it's usually got a very interesting set of equipment. I mean, the Prime variant is really an electronics powerhouse with tag, ECM, active probe. So, yay. It's got a couple ER mediums, a couple of LRM5s, flamer. So it's not a terrible loadout. It's very electronics heavy. Oddly enough, though, this thing actually has less pod space than the Fire Falcon also. It's only got 9.5 tons, meaning that overall this is likely a less... I mean, this is a little bit of a lesser mech that weighs more than the Fire Falcon. So, you know, it's one of those weight categories with 25 tons tends to work out mathematically better than 30 tons. Now, we got the alt config A, which mounts double streak 6s and some small pulses and flamers, which I don't really go for that one too well. I mean, the streak 6s are good, but the other weapons, it's just not so hot. It's not so great. There's an even worse variant that mounts an LB2X. I'm not a big fan of LB2Xs at all. Yeah, they're a light machine gun that fires at some stupidly long hex range, but I don't care. Honestly, it's 5 tons for 2 damage at best. Actually, 6 tons because you have to have a ton of ammo. And this thing only mounts 1 ton of ammo, so you have to choose solid or cluster before you enter the battle. And that means that, you know, you either get the -1 to hit and you risk only doing 1 point of damage, like 54% of the time, or you take it with the solid shot and then you just have a lightweight single shot AC2. Yay! The better variant is the variant C, which has 4 ER medium lasers, 2 medium pulses, a flamer, and an active probe. Now that one runs hot because 4 ER mediums already generate 20 points of heat, so you're cooking on that one. There's a long-range support variant, which has 2 LRM-10s. That's not bad. I mean, honestly, it's not bad. Then there's the heavy version, the H variant, which mounts more heat sinks, an ER large laser, a heavy medium laser, and 2 heavy small lasers. It's kind of an odd grouping of weapons because the heavy mediums are inner sphere medium ranges mounted next to a Clan ER large laser, which has a stupidly long range. So, not even playing in the same range brackets half the time. It's not terrible, not great. I mean, overall, the the Arctic Cheetah is just not as good as the Fire Falcon, though. So I'm going to put it in the basic category because it's still a clan mech and it's not crap. It's just not brilliant. Next up, the Battle Cobra. It's a totem mech. because it looks like a Cobra. It's for Steel Viper. Yay! Other clans, of course, use it, but not a lot of them. So, yeah. This is a 40 tonner. It's our first medium. It's an Omni Mech again. It, interestingly enough, does not mount an XL engine. So it moves at 6'9", which is not terrible speed at all for a 40 tonner. And it's got significant armor, not quite 100% still. We're looking at the low 90% probably, because just glancing down there, I can see the arms could use another point of armor. The legs could each use 3 more points of armor to maximize it. The torso is already down by a point, so it's probably 92% armor coverage, just off the top of my head without actually doing the math for it. The thing about this thing is it's not bad. The basic variant, the prime variant, mounts 2 large pulse and 2 small pulse lasers. Now, it only has 10 double heat sinks, and I would have preferred if they'd actually taken one of the small pulse lasers and given it another double heat sink, remove the other small pulse laser and given it 2 ER smalls for point blank weaponry. It had worked out mathematically better and allowed the Battle Cobra to run and fire both large pulses without generating any heat at all. But as it is, you go up a little bit of heat, but it's not a bad amount of heat at all. So that's pretty good in general, and it's pulse weapons, so they're hitting with really good accuracy. Especially clan pulse weapons, which have disgustingly long ranges. The next configuration, the alt configuration A, mounts a whole bunch of pulse lasers. We're talking 4 mediums and 6 small pulse lasers, so it really does cook off. That one gets very hot running comparatively, but it's very accurate and it's very good weaponry. I mean, because you can fire all the medium pulse without generating any excess heat, and then when you get into range, you can switch out the mediums, bring in the smalls to do more shots and not generate as much heat. So it's not bad. The variant I do not like is alt config B, which literally just flips out the large pulses for ERPPCs, which means you are really heat inefficient. You're generating 50% more heat than you can cover by compensation. So you fire both, you get 30, you could drop 20, so you're not... No, that's a bad variant. I don't understand any variant that says, hey, ERPPCs and don't have the heat capacity to handle even... Yeah, no. Yeah, it's got good pop at range, but you're going to fire, then you're going to not do anything in the next turn. Fire, and not... Seriously, 30 points of damage versus 20 points of damage. In the long run, it probably evens out, but I'd much rather be hitting with those large pulses every turn instead of the ERPPCs every other turn. Then there is the alt config C, which has 3 medium pulses, small pulse, and an ATM-9. The ATM-9 mounts only 2 tons of ammo, so you can only pick 2 of the 3 options. Still, not bad at all. With the pulse lasers, I'm assuming you're going to go high explosive and basic rounds, or maybe just all high explosive ammo, and just deal with this thing only as a point-blank fighter, which is really kind of going to be good. Then, of course, you have the alt config H, which is the heavy loadout one. Again, an ER large lasers, 2 of them, and 2 heavy mediums. Now, it carries more double heat sinks to help compensate for it. It actually can dump 28 points of heat, which means you can fire both the ER larges and run and generate no heat. You can fire 1 ER large, both the heavy mediums, and run and generate no heat. So it's not bad, that variant. Literally the only variant of the Battle Cobra in the book that's bad is the alt config B. So I think the Battle Cobra is going to get listed as an awesome mech. Next up, we have the Clan 45-ton Omni Mech, the Grendel. Now, this one's got an interesting naming convention because both the industry and the clans actually refer to it as the Grendel. But it is also known as the Mongrel. But even the clanners changed the name of the mech from Mongrel to Grendel once they overheard, like, Comstar or somebody talking about it. So they kind of went, ooh, marketable! So, yeah, it's an interesting one in the fact that both the clans and the industry typically both refer to this by the same name, which happens with a lot of other designs later on, but in this era, they're still doing the double name thing pretty well. But this time, Grendel is really just the name that both sides use pretty much consistently. Now, it's a 45-tonner that moves 711-7 with an XL engine, so it's got that. It's got 10 double heat sinks, which is good, and 144 points of armor, which, looking down the list, is, again, just a touch under maximum. The primary variant has an ER large laser, ER small, Streak 6, 2 ER mediums, 3 ER mediums, and a couple of extra double heat sinks to handle the heat. So essentially you got your one large jousting weapon with the ER large laser, and then after that, you got your close range weaponry, and it's not really going to build up any heat because of how it essentially just ignores the ER large laser at closer ranges. And remember, Clan Streak missiles have a longer range than basic SRMs do. So those streaks reach out to 12 hexes, which is pretty good to match up with those ER medium lasers. So in all general, this mech is a pretty solid prime variant. Alt config A goes and becomes a long-range support mech with double 15 racks and a few other weapons. It's not my personal favorite, but it's not bad. Alt config B brings in an Ultra 5 and pulses along with an ER medium. I feel that's a lot less of an effective variant than the prime variant. But this one's not going to be heat problematic as much, so you could pretty much fire everything all the time. Then there's the Alt config C, which mounts an LB10, ER medium, and an AMS. That's probably my least favorite ones because honestly you've lost a lot of damage output compared to some of the other variants in this book. There's the ER PPC, medium pulse, ER medium, SRM61. The alt config D is kind of like a changeover on the primary configuration that I don't think in general is as good because it loses the streak 6 rack for a basic 6 rack, and that's just losing a little bit of pop overall. You lose the range and you lose the automatic 6 missile hits. Alt configuration E is the ATM configuration, mounting 2 ATM-6s alongside of a couple lasers. It mounts 4 tons of ammo, so you can have your full selection of ammo. But without the energy backups, I'm in general not as big a fan of running just raw ATMs without some energy backups. It's not so bad, but it's not my favorite variant. The alt configuration H, though, is a pretty impressive one because it does mount a heavy, large laser. That is a 16-point damage gun. That is really powerful. Now, it also generates 16 points of heat, and its range is only equivalent to an inner sphere large laser, but still. Oh, and because it's a heavy large laser, it has a +1 to hit. So it's more difficult to aim and accurate. But essentially, if you have a good clan pilot on this thing and you get those shots, you just pump out a ton of damage. Paired with that are some Streak 4s and some ER mediums, and a lot of extra double heat sinks to help compensate for the heat exchange on this thing. So the H variant on this one is probably my favorite H variant we've seen in the book so far. In general, this is a good darn mech. I like the Prime variant. Is almost my favorite variants for Prime Omni, so we're going to take that sucker and we're going to stick it in the Awesome as well. So far, nothing has wowed me, but nothing has depressed me. So that's always a good thing to see. Next up after the Grendel is the Shadow Cat. This is one of my personal favorite mechs. I love the way it looks. It's always been cool. It's a 696, but it can mask up to 12 hexes. It's got 10 double heat sinks, and it's, again, a touch under armor. I mean, this is kind of a theme of this book for like the clanners is while the inner sphere mechs, a lot of them look like they pushed the button of total maximum armor. The clanners went, nah, we don't need to be max armor. We're going for speed. A lot of these mechs are pretty fast. But this guy, this is a little 40-foot tower. It's got 17 tons of pod space. So more than a third of its weight is dedicated to weaponry. And that's pretty good because it already has mask built in. The primary variant carries a Gauss rifle, 2 ER mediums, and an active probe. The active probe seems a little bit weird on there because this is like a sniper mech with an active probe. Whatever. I would think of an ECM would have been more effective than an active probe, but whatever. It does have 2 tons of ammo, so it can fire for a long time with that Gauss rifle, which is good. The alt configuration A kind of maintains the sniper mech quality on this thing with 2 ER large lasers, Streak 6, and another active probe. Yeah, I'm not really getting the active probes on this thing, but it seems to be kind of a theme-ish thing. But still, another sniper mech with 2 ER larges, which is pretty good. The Streak 6 are not bad. Again, they've got 12 hex range, which is pretty solid. And alt configuration B is another long-range support mech with 2 15 racks, both with Artemis 4, and a pair of ER medium lasers. This one, though, has the ECM suite. Now, remember, in clans, active probe and ECM both weigh 1 ton. So, I don't know why on some of these variants we're running the active probe and not the ECM. So, again, the LRMs on this thing can fire for 16 rounds, which is pretty good distance of time for battle. The next variant, the alt config C, mounts double ATM-6s, 3 ER medium lasers, and a NARC missile beacon. Okay. The ATMs are, again, can be long-range weapons, but they can also dial it back to really close ranges and do a lot of damage. The last variant is a alt config H, which has a heavy large laser, LRM-20 with an Artemis 4, and a targeting computer. Targeting appears nice to offset the heavy large lasers +1 to hit, but it's paired with an LRM. It's not bad. It's just weird. Now, I really like the way this mech looks, and in general, it's a very nice long-range sniper. But I don't think it's much more than that, so I think that it qualifies as an awesome mech, but not better. I mean, we have a theme running for this one. The Clanners are pretty solid mechs all the way through this thing. But that's Clan Mechs for you in general, isn't it? And I lied. We came to a mech that is going to be going really low in the categories. We have the Hunchback IIC. I talked about this mech before on one of my prior videos, and my attitude towards it still pretty much stays the same. This thing's a 464 second liner with 12 double heat sinks at 50 tons. Now, one of the biggest downsides is this thing has no armor. It has 96 points of armor on a mech that can easily mount 152. This thing tends to not survive to its engagement ranges, which is kind of sad because what it really has is just has 2 Ultra 20s, 2 ER mediums, and barely enough ammo to fire those Ultra 20s. Those Ultra 20s can fire for either 5 rounds each, or 2 rounds of double tapping with a single round after that. It is a suicide mech. It's a perfect mech for Solamo units because they want to go out in a blaze of glory, and this thing, it lets them go out in a blaze of glory. You will die more times getting to the battle than actually in the battle. Because all things have to do is back up at your little tiny slow assault mech, your heavy assault mech speed of 464. Keep out of good range of those Ultra 20s and just shred you. I mean, you lose a leg on this thing, which is easy enough to do. I mean, a Gauss rifle will punch through this thing's armor. It's only got 12 points of armor on a leg. If you get in the leg 3 times with even like basic initial mediums, you have a chance of not going anywhere ever again. It's a weak mech for the armor alone. This is... I'm going to only put it in the crap category this time. I'm being a little bit nice, because on the chance that you actually are fighting in a city environment, or an environment that's going to limit your opponent's movement significantly so you can actually get into the range of them, those Ultra 20s are truly scary weapons, but they are niche on a mech like this. Yeah, definitely not my favorite mech. I mean, I still really am impulsed to put it down into dreadful, but it has a niche situation of a few places where it's actually a good mech. But they're very niche and they're very rare. Next up, we have the Huntsman, or as it's known in the sphere, the Nobori Nin. The Nobori Nin is kind of a cool one because that's like the back banners of the Japanese samurai and stuff like that. So it's a pretty cool name because it's named for that little fin up on top. Which, over the generations of the design, the fin has gotten smaller, which I'm actually kind of fine with because, whatever. It looks more like a shark face to me in some ways, like the drawing. Like it's a predator that's a hunter. Kind of like Huntsman, yeah. Anyways, it's a 50-ton mech. Now remember, the Hunchback IIC was also 50 tons. Hunchback IIC had 96 points of armor. This thing's at 169! This thing is like max armor, the opposite spectrum. This thing is durable. It's a 5.85. It's also faster. It's a benefit when you're not carrying 2 of the largest caliber weapons and very little ammo for them. Okay. This thing's also got 10 double heat sinks mounted in it. And it's got interesting loadouts. I mean, the primary loadout is not my favorite because it's really eclectic and it has an Ultra AC2. And Ultra AC2s are garbage of a different variety. 2-yard mediums, Ultra AC2, LRM 10, Active Probe. The LRMs have Artemis. It's got more ER mediums. It's got a Streak SRM2. It's got a Tag. It's got Flamers. It's got APODs. The basic variant is just really kind of a crazy cluster. Not my personal favorite. My favorite is when you get down. Alt config A is okay with some large pulses, LB2s and LRMs. It's kind of the similar kind of clustering garbage. But when we actually get to alt config B, we get much better. We've got an LB10X paired to an ER-PPC with a pair of medium pulses and a pair of machine guns. That's a lot more rounded. It's got some good long-range jousting weapons, some close-range pulses, and then some anti-infantry guns on it. The B is a much better variant. The C is a missile boat with LRM-20s, LRM-15s, and Streak SRM-4s. as well as a couple lasers and flamers and an Ultra AC5. Again, this mech has a lot of weird eclectic collections. Now, one of the reasons why I can do that is it's a 50-tonner with 23.5 tons of pod space. That is almost 50% of its weight dedicated to weaponry, which is pretty solid. Alt Config D mounts an ATM-6, 2 medium pulse lasers, a small pulse, and an Ultra AC-10. Now, if you're going to go with an Ultra, I think the 10 is probably one of the better ones, because if you want to spend that time double tapping, it doesn't have a lack of ammo where you feel like you're wasting it if you don't get those 2 hits in. But it also does enough damage that if you do get those 2 hits in, they tickle good. So, Ultra 10s are my favorite Ultra. If I'm going to... The 10 autocannons are really the sweet spot of the autocannons, in my opinion. They do the best damage for range and weight of all the autocannons. The 5s tend to be too much weight for the damage at the range. The 2s are just garbage. And the 20s tend to have that lower range bracket, making them not as flexible in the battlefield as the 10. Alt Configuration H, the heavy weapons variant, mounts an ER large laser, 2 heavy mediums, a heavy small, a lot more double heat sinks, another ER large, 2 more ER mediums, and a targeting impeder. So this has the targeting impeder to help offset the difficulties of firing the heavy mediums. So, you know, it's got the +1, -1, so that's actually going to be a balancing factor, so it's pretty good right there. It's also got an active probe and an ECM sweep, making it's got an electronics mech effect going on there as well. The Alt Config H is a pretty solid configuration. It's going to run hot even with the extra double heat sinks, but that's why you got to just balance your weapons. You fire the heavies, mediums, or the ER larges. You're not going to combine those together ever because you're going to cook like crazy. This is also interesting. You got another alt configuration in the book. ER PPCs, ATMs, ER large lasers, a heavy medium, and a targeting computer. Again, it's kind of eclectic, but it's more energy based with a nice ATM-6 on there. The Noborinin is kind of a crazy design loadout, where it makes me want to put it down into basic, but because it's got all of those really nice clan weaponry, I think the Noborinin is kind of a basic mech. It's pretty well armored. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad at all. I like it, but it's because of the eclectic loadouts that it's really not specializing in anything that makes it a little bit more meh, because you have to choose often to turn off clusters of weapons in order to be heat efficient. And other than that, it's just... It's very basic in design. It's almost got an instrumentality to it. It's really weird as that is to say. Where it has, like, you know, a lot of guns, but not the heat to handle them. Overall, I like the way it looks. It's a nice mech, but it is not as streamlined, I guess I'd like to say, as some of the other clanners we've seen so far. Next up is the Black Lanner. Another Jade Falcon mech. We got like a little Falcon-y going on here. This is a 55-tonner. That's really fast. It's a 711 with mask up to 14, so very speedy. Now that does mean this 55-tonner does have a significant weakness. It only has 13 tons of pod space. So we're going to talk about very limited weaponry on this thing, because it's got the speed instead. So it's got 154 points of armor, meaning that it's, you know, a little bit, a touch more, by 2 points, over your typical Inner Sphere 55-tonner. That tend to move a lot slower at 585. This thing's a 711. 14 in brackets. Now, not saying that it doesn't have some okay loadouts, but it's just generally more limited. The basic primary version has got an ER large, SRM-6, 2 ER mediums, and LRM-10 with an ECM suite. That's honestly not bad, because it's taking advantage of the fact that clan missile weapons are much lighter than their Inner Sphere counterparts. So by using this clan missile weapons, you're able to get a lot of weaponry in the pod space you've got available. Alt Config A is an ER PPC active probe, 2 medium lasers, a tag, and an ECM suite. This one's a very good scout. At 55 tons, it's a very good scout because it's fast, it's got its own ECM bubble, and it's got the active probe to go along with that. Its weaponry is pretty good. It's a little bit hot running because you're generating 23 points of heat, and you're going to be doing 2 points of running, so a bit 5 over. So every zone you just have to turn off the ER PPC to cool down, or turn off one of those medium pulses so you don't build up too high. Your optional choice. Not bad though. I don't like Alt Config B, even though it does take advantage of the missile weights, because all it is 220 racks, with a whopping amount of missiles that can only fire 8 times per rack in a battle. No, sorry, 9 times per rack in a battle, which means you may run out of ammo before the battle is over. Not my favorite variant, because this thing's speed means it's more of a scout and a harasser instead of a long-range support mech, so the LM-20s are a bit weird. The next variant is kind of like a wannabe Blackhawk. Nova. It's got 6 ER mediums and a Streak 6 rack, which isn't bad because it adds 3 more double heat sinks, but it doesn't even cover the heat of the mediums. So it's going to run a little bit hot. But again, it's taking advantage of that smallest pod space to use lightweight weaponry. Which is why you'll notice this thing doesn't really have any auto cannon variants, because auto cannons are weight hogs. Alt config D has a lot of pulse weapons, machine guns, SRMs. It's really kind of like another good scout with the active probe, the flamer, and you know, those kind of things. It's got some anti-infantry aspect to it because the machine guns and the flamers are really good at killing infantry. This is kind of the harasser. This is the close-range brawler harasser variant, which is pretty good. Then we got alt config E, which mounts 3 ER mediums and an ATM-12. The ATM-12 has 3 tons of ammo, so again, you can mount all 3 different varieties of ammo. But again, you're probably more likely to mount the high explosive and the SRM equivalent ammo to match up with the ER mediums. You really don't need the long-range shells from this one. The last variant, the alt config H, is got a heavy large, 2 medium pulses, an ECM, and 4 extra double heat sinks. You don't have a targeting computer to offset the heavy large lasers in accuracy, but that doesn't matter. If you hit like a truck, and it's got the medium pulses to go alongside that, so it's not bad. Again, it's using that tonnage of that light pod space for a relatively effective loadout. The problem is, I do think it does for a clanner hit a little bit light. I like the look of this mech. I like the speed on it with the good armor. I just think for a clanner, it's a little bit light, and that makes it more basic, sadly, because I do like it. I actually like almost every mech in here except for the Hunchback IIC, I'll be very honest. Most of these are pretty cool. We come to our very first mech that didn't make it into the Catalyst Kickstarter. Maybe we'll see this in the future box, but, you know, who knows. This is our first heavy mech. This is the Tresher at 60 tons. It's touch weird. It's a 5.85 with mask going to 10 for the run speed. It's got the same armor as an Inner Sphere 55 tonner, 152 points. So it's got 13 double heat sinks. And for the weaponry, it has an ER medium, 2 SRM6s, 2 medium pulse lasers, and an Ultra AC-10. So not even badly armed. It's just kind of a touch weird, I guess. The image, it's not a terrible drawing design. I mean, although, again, the lasers in the arms have humongous apertures. It's overall not a bad mech. I mean, it could be a little bit heavier in the armor, but it has the Ultra 10, so it's got a pretty good punch. It's considered to be a medium-range brawler, and I actually can see that. It's pretty good. I mean, I think that this is a... let's see, what would you rate this sucker? It's got pretty good overall. Awesome or basic? Because that's a hard choice in my opinion. I think I'm going to put in the basic just because it could use a touch more armor. It's not bad though. I like it well enough, but I just, you know, I don't know. I'm kind of ambivalent. It's kind of like on the borderline in my opinion between these two, and I'm going to rate it a little bit lower because of that. Next up we have the Ebon Jaguar, aka the Cauldron Born in Inner Sphere terms. This is a 65-ton heavy mech that moves at 5.80 with 13 double heat sinks, and it's an Omni. It's got 182 points of armor, so we're looking at, again, a little bit light in the armor actually. This is, of course, a mech designed by Clan Jaguar. Smoke Jag! It's got both ferrofibrous and Indosteel, meaning it's got pretty good. And it's got 30 tons of pod space, which is almost half our weight of the mech in pod space, which is really good. So let's take a look at the variants of this thing. The primary one is a Gauss rifle, SRM2, LB5, ER medium, LRM10. Well, that's just raw weird. Don't really like the primary variant in general. It's not my favorite one by a long shot. We'll get down to my favorite variant in a little while. Alt config A is an ER large, medium pulse, machine guns, Ultra 20, another ER large, and some more machine guns. The A variant is a pretty good brawler with some long-range sniping weapons on it. Alt config B is got 2 ER PPCs, 2 large pulse lasers, 2 medium pulse lasers, an active probe and a tag, and nowhere near the heat capacity to handle those weapons. The alt config B is actually pretty bad because you don't have the heat to handle even the 2 ER PPCs on this thing. So you're looking at a massively overgunned, under dissipating mech. Next up is the alt config C, which is also not so great, with 2 Ultra 2s, 2 LRM-15s, and 2 SM-6s. It's all ammo dependent, which means you are really stuck with the ammo on this thing. If you run out of ammo, you're SOL, which is not so great. But next up is one of the best variants ever. 2 Ultra AC 10s with 2 ER medium lasers and an ER large laser. That thing is just really nice. Really nice. He's a friend. He's Ultra Config H. He's got a heavy large laser, 2 more doubles, another Ultra 20, 2 more heavy mediums, a double heatsink, targeting computer. Now he's got the targeting computer. The targeting computer with that Ultra 20 is really kind of nice. I mean, we gotta say that. That's really nice. -1 to hit with an Ultra 20 is pretty solid. So that's a good puncher. It's got enough ammo that you can double punch with the Ultra 20 some. It's got 15 rounds. So usually I'd fire it on single fire, but in the really good shots or whatever, I might risk that double fire just because, hey, I can waste an enemy like crazy with that one. So it's really weird that this mech has 30 tons of pod space, but some configurations are pretty lousy. But some configurations, the D and the H, are really amazing. And also the alt config A is pretty good too. You just have to bracket your weapons out. It's a smoked jag mech, so I mean, I want to throw it in superior, but I'm not going to. I mean, I just love the mech, and it just looks cool. I love this thing's squat, low design. If you're using quirks, it usually, I do believe it has the quirk of narrow, low profile, making it harder to hit and making things, you know, cluster weapons have lower damage to it, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to put it in the awesome category just because, you know, it is awesome. It's smoked jag. Also, some of the variants are truly fantastic, while some variants are crap. You know, some people probably think I should put it down to basic, but I don't really want to. And it's my ranking system for this one, my opinion. And the Cauldron-born has always been one of my personal favorite mechs of the game. I will run these things like crazy. Oh, I forgot about this one being in there. Next up is the Crossbow. Welcome to your Clan Omni-Mech that has no advanced technology. No Indo, no Pharaoh. Oh, sorry, it had double heat sinks. No Indo, no Pharaoh, no XL. This thing is just awful. The base variant mounts exactly 2 LRM-20s with Artemis 4 and enough ammo for 12 rounds. Technically, I should be okay with that because it's about the right amount of time to fight with. Remember, this thing only has I should note this thing only has 16 tons of pod space. So it's light pod space because it didn't use any weight-saving features at all. No XL, no Indo, no Pharaoh. And that's because this was designed during the Golden Century, I do believe. So it's old. It's an old design, but it's just not good in general. The alt config A breaks out the LRM-20s into LRM-5s and Streak 6s, and it slaps in 2 medium pulse lasers to give it some guns, but that's better. The alt config B mounts 4 Streak 6s with plenty of ammo, but again, oh, by the way, all these variants are only arm-mounted weapons, which means your torsos are completely empty. That means every tack and every critical that goes through the armor and torsos is likely to be going straight to the CT on this thing, just destroying your engine and your gyro. I mean, it is such a lackluster design in so many ways. It doesn't mount anything in the torsos to help prevent criticals going inward. It's just bad. Now, what alt config C does fix that. It does put some machine guns and machine gun ammo on the side torsos because, yay, heavy machine guns. Alt config H is the strangest one of all because it's no longer a missile boat. Like every variant otherwise is a missile boat. The config H mounts heavy large lasers and heavy medium lasers, light machine guns, and an LRM-15 rack. It's just kind of weird. It doesn't seem to fit at all. But again, almost, it's crap, but it's not terrible. I mean, it honestly makes me feel like I should be dropping the Hunchback IIC down into Dreadful, because the crossbow is better than the Hunchback IIC, even though the crossbow is crap. It's not bad looking crap. Honestly, the mech design looks pretty cool for like the way it looks. It's just sadly, you know, not a great mech. Next up, we have our second mech that didn't make it into the Kickstarter mechs. No new resculpt, no new redesign for this one so far yet, which is too bad. We have our 70-ton heavy mech from Ghost Bear, known as the Grizzly. It's a bear! It's a bear! This is a second liner, so we really got one variant in the book. It's got Indo Steel, moves 464 with no XL engine. It's got 11 double heat sinks and a pretty reasonable 208 points of armor. It's not max, but it's pretty close. It's got a Gauss rifle, a large, medium, and small pulse laser, and an LRM-10. It's a pretty average loadout. It's a pretty average mech. It's a solid second liner. And I kind of like it. I mean, it's not terrible, it's not great, it's actually going to be very basic. Honestly, kind of wish this thing had barrel fibers just to have a little touch more weaponry. It could probably fit in another like small pulse laser or medium pulse laser, but as it is, it's heat efficient. It's good armor, good range weapons. Which is kind of funny because in the clans, the large pulse laser is a range weapon. It's got a disgusting range on the large pulse laser, so. We're getting down to our last 5 mechs in this list, and this is our last heavy mech at 75 tons, the Jade Falcon Night Gear. This is a very interesting mech. It's a 464 heavy mech with 12 double heat sinks, 221 points of armor, so again, not quite max, but we're getting pretty close. And it's got some damage outputs. I mean, this thing's got 38 tons of pod space, which is, again, like, that is, like, over half, by, like, half a ton. So, a lot of pod space on this mech. And it uses that pod space. The primary configuration mounts an Ultra 10, medium pulse, double ER PPCs, another medium pulse, and a boat ton of extra double heat sinks to handle this thing's heat generation. It's a pretty solid variant, and those guns can output some significant hurt at distance. Then we got Alt Config A, which is the Brawler variant with an Ultra 20, Streak 6, large pulse, medium pulses, another Streak 6. I mean, this thing's up-in-your-face Brawler variant that's going to be scary because, again, it's got double heat sinks in there to help compensate for that large amount of heat it's generating. Alt Config B, I want to say is crap, but at the same time is also good. It mounts double Gauss rifles. That's good. Then it wastes 10 tons, well, actually 11 tons, on 2 LB2Xs and 1 ton of ammo again. Once again, 1 ton of LBX ammo, so you have to pick at the beginning, do you want to get cluster or do you want to get solid shot, because anytime an LBX doesn't have 2 tons of ammo, I like it a lot less. Alt Config B is not so great. Alt Config C, it's got a target computer, 3 Ultra AC2s, double ER larges, lots of ER mediums, and more heat sinks. The target computer is what makes that thing truly fantastic, because the ER larges just smacking at long range with an ER to the target computer is pretty amazing. The Ultra 2s are fine. It's got a lot of ammo. It's got 90 rounds for the Ultra 2s. There's only 2 tons of ammo, but it's still got plenty of ammo for those Ultra 2s to be just double tapping until they jam up all game long. And just hoping to get those double pink, plink, 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 plinks. Definitely not my favorite variant because, again, that's 15 tons in Ultra AC2s that are just... That could have been a Gauss rifle. 1 Gauss rifle. That variant's probably an anti-air variant or whatever, but 15 tons is a Gauss rifle and 3 tons of ammo. So technically there's 17 tons right there, so you could do something else with the extra tonnage also. And be a much better weapon. That would generate less heat and be much scarier. Sure, the Ultra 2s have a longer range than the Gauss rifle by some distance, but who cares? That is a topping out of 12 points of damage, versus 15 points of damage in one cluster. I'll tell you, I'll take that Gauss Rifle any day over the Ultra AC2s. Next up is a variant that actually is kind of truly terrifying. It's got 4 LRM-20s with Artemis 4 on it. Now the problem is it's only got 9 rounds of firing for all of those things, because it's got 2 blocks of 18 ammos for those 4 launchers. So you got 9 shots per launcher, but then it has a medium pulse and a large pulse to back it up. But still, that's a scary variant. If you don't got something to block that Artemis 4, this thing is going to be putting the hurt on at distance. Scary, scary mech. Alt-Config E is a pulse monster with lots of large pulses, medium pulses, double heat sinks, and some ATM 6s and some SRM 6s. That's your brawler variant. That's a pretty solid brawling mech. Then Alt-Config H pairs up heavy large lasers with Ultra 10s and Gauss rifles. Holy crap, that is amazing! That is a truly fantastic loadout. Bam, 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 bam. That is a solid loadout on this mech. I love that Night Gear variant. The Night Gear is our first mech that actually is going to go in the superior category, because this thing has got some variants that are truly freaking frightening on the tabletop. I mean, honestly, like, the only variant I truly don't like is the Alt-Config C, and that's because it wastes tons of Ultra AC2s. Even the Alt-Config B is kind of scary with the double Gauss rifles, although B and C are probably the lesser of the variants, and neither one is truly a bad variant. Whereas all the other ones are scary. Now we're going to jump from 75 tons straight up to the 90-ton category. We're just going to bypass the other weights of the assault class and just go straight into the 90-ton Kingfisher. This is an Omni mech that is a zombie Omni. No XL engine on this sucker, but he always mounts guns in the center torso. I mean, talking on some variants with a freaking ERPPC in the CT. This mech is a monster. It's not the most gorgeous looking mech, but it's a monster on the battlefield. It only has 24 tons of pod space, because again, no XL engine. But it makes use of those pods. Because it has, for one thing, 24 tons of pod space are not counting the fact that it has 17 doubles built in. And this thing is maximal armor. So, it's a zombie that's armored to the nines, and it's got good guns anyways. So the base primary variant, it's got large pulse, medium pulse, streak 6, ER small, arm 10, medium, and a large pulse again. That's probably one of the lesser variants honestly on this thing. But it has all those large pulses in the center torso, meaning that it ain't dead until it's dead. Alt-Config A has an LB10, ER medium, ER small, medium pulse, SRM 6, and then an ERPPC in the CT. Now, Alt-Config B is the one variant that doesn't use the center torso properly. What does it have in the center torso? An AMS system and AMS ammo. Bleh. Now it has an Ultra 20 and a bunch of ER lasers. It's not going to be heat efficient because it's got a lot of ER mediums and ER large in there, so not going to be heat efficient like some of the other variants, which is a bit sad making. So right now, Alt-Config B, even with the Ultra 20, is definitely not my favorite variant. Alt-Config C is all energy with double ER PPCs, double ER mediums. That's right, 4 ER mediums. 2 of those in the center torso this time, which is not bad. And a boat ton of extra heat sinks. So this thing is pretty close to heat efficient. I'm not going to do the math on it right now off the top of my head, but it's pretty darn close. Because it's adding 8 more. I think this thing can sink 25 doubles, so 50 points of heat dissipation, which is actually every single weapon it can fire except for its movement. So this thing's really darn heat efficient. That is scary good for an energy boat. Alt-Config D mounts an Ultra 10, 2 ER and 3 ER large lasers. So it's the ultimate jouster. Now it can't handle that heat because the 3 ER large lasers are already generating 36 points of heat, and it can only handle 34. So it generates it cooks a little bit. But then you just turn off on an ER large and you're okay. Alt-Config E mixes an ATM-12 with a bunch of pulse lasers. So that's good. It has 3 tons of ammo for the ATM, so you can actually put in a whole bunch of things. But on this variant, you're probably going to once again only run high explosive and the basic variant, which is the SRM equivalent. So you can just punch out. I mean, an ATM-12 with high explosive on a good roll is 36 points of damage. It's a lot of clusters of 5 with that little lone 1 dinking into someplace. Alt Config H is our heavy laser variant that again mounts a targeting computer to offset the heavy laser's inaccuracies. So we got heavy large, ER mediums, another heavy large, and some more ER mediums, and again a whole boatload of double heat sinks added in to make this thing pretty close to heat efficient, which is nice to see. And those ER mediums attached to the targeting computer are -1 to hit, which is pretty darn solid. Now the Kingfisher is another one of our superior mechs. I love the Kingfisher. I've always loved the Kingfisher, even though it looks, I don't know, weird, blocky. The new Catalyst design is not terrible at all. It's just not the most gorgeous mech ever. It's an effective mech, a very effective mech. Next up is another 2C variant, the Supernova. Because if the one thing the Nova is known for is being a heat inefficient monster, let's go with a mech that weighs 90 tons and is also a heat inefficient monster. This thing has 26 double heat sinks, means it can handle 52 points of heat. And then it decides to mount 6 ER large lasers. 72 points of heat. Once again, not able to handle our heat. It's not honestly as bad as the Nova, but it's pretty bad on the heat. And yet, I like the mech. I mean, it's just an insane mech. You once again never fire on the full insane capacities, because why would you? But, arm, few extra lasers, arm, blah, 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 blah. You like, fire like 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4. Oh no, it's time I'm going to die. All 6. It's also got really, really good armor. Not maximum armor. I can just, by glancing down, I can tell it doesn't have maximum armor. But it's pretty solid. It also looks really cool. So the Nova's going to go in the awesome category because any mech that's going to be firing at 25 hex range, pretty much with impunity, good armor, and a stinking amount of heat dissipation anyways, is pretty solid. It's scary, long range, no ammo explosions, no XL engine. But its downside being that, again, all the lasers are in the arms. But it's still an awesome mech because it's kind of scary on the battlefield. In so many ways, 3058 probably should have been called the Book of the Jade Falcon. Because here we have another Jade Falcon mech. A 95-ton Omni-Mech known as their Turkina, a.k.a. Mr. Pancake. The original design to me always looked like a stack of pancakes. Very squishy. With bizarre little, like, robot arms from, like, Lost in Space. It's weird. But it's a good mech. It has 42 tons of pod space on a 95-ton mech. That's almost half. Well, it's not quite. It's good, though. And it's got very heavy armor. It is actually maximum armor, which is amazing. Well, okay, it's not quite max. It's like 5. It's like 5 points under max, but it's efficient maximum, more or less. I guess they could have put a half a ton more armor in. No, that would have been a waste of points of armor. It's the efficient maximum of armor on this thing, which is pretty amazing. It's a 353 also with 15 double heat sinks built in. And it is a monster. The primary variant carries 2 ER PPCs and 2 LR15s and 2 LB5Xs and some extra double heat sinks to handle the heat generation of that thing, which it does need because it has 2 ER PPCs. It's pretty sweet. That's a long-range sniper that's pretty scary. Alt Configuration A, though, is even better because it mounts double Gauss rifles paired up with double LRM-20s. Yay! Scary times coming down the field. Alt Config B is another long-range variant, but this one is a energy monster. ER larges, ER mediums, large pulses, medium pulses, and a boat ton of extra heat sinks. This thing has got a target computer in addition to all that, so we're talking about mechs that are just super accurate at long ranges and just scary as all heck. I'm not going to do the math on the top of my head, but this thing's probably relatively close to heat efficient because it's adding in a crap ton of extra double heat sinks on top of the 15 built-ins. Scary. The Alt Config C is probably my least favorite configuration on this thing because it's got some large pulses and some streak 6s, but it has an LB20X, active probe, A-pods, and flamers. This thing does not seem like the kind of mech that needs A-pods and flamers. You should have something else around it to support it to deal with anti-infantry, anti-battle armor things. Well, they're not B-pods, they're A-pods, so it's not even designed for killing battle armor, it's just gonna kill for infantry. I mean, I suppose if you look at the design, you probably want something like that, because the cockpit is definitely not gonna see any infantry below it, because like it's a giant pancake with the cockpit up on top. So, yeah. Still, I mean, by far, my least favorite variant is the C variant. It's just bizarre, not super great. Compared to the D variant, which is 4 ATM-12s. 4 ATM-12s! With 2 ER medium lasers. It's got so many tons of ATM ammo, you can easily pick and choose whatever you want to. But again, I don't know, you're probably running a majority of this one's mech ammo is probably going to be running the basic 2 points per missile ammo. A few high explosives, and maybe like 1 or 2 tons of the long range stuff. Because it has 10 tons of ammo, you can really choose your loadout on that sucker however you want. I like it. I wish I had a couple more energy weapons as backup, but I do like it. And all configuration H is just, well, it's an H variant. It's got a crap ton of Ultra 10s, 2 of them, targeting computer, heavy mediums all over the place, medium pulses, and double heat sinks. It's pretty scary. I like it. I mean, honestly, all the variants on this thing are pretty good. The sad thing is, I honestly don't think this is quite as good as the Night Gear in overall. I mean, I can just look at the battle values and see that in a lot of cases, the Night Gear's battle value were equivalent to it, and the Night Gear weighs 20 tons less. But the Turkina is still a frightening mech on the field, overall. I mean, it's a superior mech. I hate to say it, it has to go in the superior category, I think. Though I'm almost tempted to just put it down, in the awesome category, but it's usually pretty heat efficient, and it carries some scary, scary loadouts. I mean, really scary loadouts. And last, but certainly not least, we come to the Ghost Bear Totem Mech. The 100-ton Kodiak. Got a beautiful redesign in the Kickstarter. I love the new design. It makes it look like a really, really cool mech. This thing is a second liner. Both the Ghost Bear mechs in this book have been second liners, which is relatively kind of interesting. It's a 460 100-tonner with an XL engine, thank goodness. 20 double heat sinks, because, yeah. Now, it's a little bit light in the armor for a 100-tonner. It's only got 280 points instead of the 300 some maximum armor you tend to expect. But it's pretty sweet. This thing has got an Ultra 20, an ER large laser in the center torso, that's very important, 2 Streak SRM6s, and 8 ER medium lasers. That's the truly crazy thing. Mounts way too many ER mediums. It's a heat inefficient mech. The ER large laser you're not going to be firing at close range. And unfortunately the ER mediums just make it too much, because that Ultra 20 you want to be pumping out the ammo for. But there is a downside to the Ultra 20 also. It's only got 10 shots. It's a little bit light ammo for the Ultra 20. I'd have preferred to drop out 2 ER mediums for 1 more double heatsink, just because, and an extra ton of ammo. That'd have put it in a much more heat efficient category, because you'd have been no problem firing all the ER mediums then with the Ultra 20 and not feeling bad. And the Streak 6 would be okay on top there. As it is, I kind of feel like the extra ER mediums are compensating for the fact that you're going to run out of Ultra 20 ammo, especially if you double tap pretty fast in the battle. But being a 100-tonner with 4.6, this thing can actually close the range. And, I mean, yeah, this thing is crazy cool. It's a good mech. I don't think I can rate it as superior because of some of the inefficiencies in the lower bout of armor, but it is truly an amazingly good mech. It is an awesome mech. I mean, do not take away from the fact that this mech is an awesome mech, and I will not hesitate to pilot it any chance I'm given. I just don't think it's quite as bonkers as these other ones. I mean, I even thought about bringing the Turkina down to the awesome category, and if I'm going to bring the Turkina down to the awesome category, even considering it, the Kodiak has to also go in the awesome category. Simple fact is, the Kingfisher and the Night Gear are by far the 2 best mechs in this book for the clanners, and they're crazy good. The Kodiak is also good, but it's just a little bit off of being truly bonkers. But it's awesome, and the new Catalyst artwork is also gorgeous for it. So, happy we didn't have a single mech I rated as dreadful, even though I was tempted by at least one of those two in the crap category to put them in the dreadful. But, as expected for the clanners, a lot of awesome mechs. Some basic mechs, but they're not bad even at being a basic mechs because they're clan mechs. And a trio of superior mechs, even though one of those just barely qualifies in my opinion. Still, for the clanners, once again, a good selection of mechs, a good show out of mechs. But the clans usually don't bring bad mechs to the battlefield very often, although there are some designs. I will be doing the vehicles and the battle armor in this book at some other point in time in the future. But we've come to the end of this video, so this is SleeplessRonin saying, do the YouTube things, please subscribe to my channel, you'd really help me out. Hit that like button, it helps also. And if you have comments, please leave them below. I do read them, even if I don't often respond to the comments. Well, and we come to the end of the video. This is SleeplessRonin saying, sayonara, and we'll catch you next time.